So in 1942, July 1942, the Battle of Stalingrad begins and ends in February 1943. And as this is being fought, it's very apparent that Hitler is not listening to his generals who are saying that their resources are too thin, that they are not prepared for this battle, and Hitler is under illusion at this time period that Germany is, undefeatable, and that there's just no way that they could lose any battle really. And much to the dismay of his local generals, he cannot be convinced otherwise. And German resources are spread thin, and this is why the Blitzkrieg is not working. Blitzkrieg works in a concentrated small attack, but in the land mass that it has to attack in terms of north, south, and central, it's just too much for this particular strategy and this speed and this quickness. German aircraft are going to have a lot of trouble with their wings freezing, and they can't fly and attack from the air. They have problems with the roads because most of the roads that are listed in Russia are really unimproved mud paths, and there's tremendous amount of mud in the autumn of 1942, and probably most times of the year in Russia at the time period. And there's scenes, I've seen films of, and this is really common, they just take the Germans take dead bodies and line the bodies on the road and ride their tanks and their military equipment over dead bodies to gain traction. And again, this brutality that happens during this war, it's just mind-boggling, and it's hard again for us to imagine. Stalingrad, like I said, becomes essential to the war because at this point Hitler's army is unable to take the city. They're defeated in the city. Actually ends up being this major pincer technique in which the Soviet army sweeps around from the south and then from western positions and attacks the German army from the rear. And he's going to lose a major amount of men to this battle, but also it just turns the tide in terms of morale for the German army. Like, what are we doing here? And they start to lose faith in their leader, and because what is happening, there's virtually no success in Russia. Although there is, again, like I said, much bloodshed. During this time period of 42-43 becomes the critical years for the extermination camps. So, again, as the cover of warfare emerges in the East, much of the leaders who are the architects of this greater genocide put it into action really in 42-43. And these are the critical years. So when all this is happening with Stalingrad and battles in the East and such, this is when the extermination camps are created to in terms of the gas camps. And many of those who became in charge of these extermination camps came from the original euthanasia program of mental institution patients from Germany. So these people were moved out. They weren't necessarily career SS men, and the SS were the elite force under Himmler that carried out the policies of genocide in general. They were in most cases, the SS ran the camps, were those who rounded up Jews. They were part of this Einsatz group, and etc. They were the ideologically fervent of Hitler's army, really. Those who were most loyal and who wanted to pursue these goals of annihilation against the Jews. And oftentimes people say, if I had this, if people said I had to kill these Jews or I'd be killed, I guess I would have to kill people too. But the case wasn't that in most of Europe during this time period. Like I said, it was volunteers. It was people willing to kill, and the SS were men who were willing to kill. And the camps, in terms of the use of gas, they used exhaust of truck engines. In some camps, in other camps, they used a pesticide called Zyklon B. That's what they're going to use in Auschwitz. But the pattern becomes very industrialized as how these people are going to be killed in the camps, and it becomes a major part of really of the war effort. So they round up Jews throughout Europe, and those that had been put in ghettos from the early stages of the war. Many of the Jews were just put in ghettos and were slowly starving to death, and those who were resisting or just randomly were shot in other locations, in other locales. The camps were a way for Hitler to try and speed up the process of killing these people. So they used the rail lines, which were extensive in Poland and throughout Western Europe, to virtually ship people to the extermination camps. Like I said, the extermination camps are not the concentration camps. There was only 6 or so extermination camps. And at Treblinka, which is one of the more famous of these extermination camps in Poland, the pattern is this, that railway cars would show up each day, maybe 100 railway cars, each packed fully with humans. So generally somewhere from 70 to 100 individuals are going to be shoved into these cars, and they're in very bad shape because they're coming from places throughout Europe. They might have been shipped in the heat. They have no water. They've had no relief as in terms of a restroom. Basically, they were shoved in. There's 2 buckets. There's a bucket of water and an empty bucket. And the empty bucket was supposed to be for human waste. Inside the cattle cars, many people died. Many children died. Many babies died in the cattle cars because the conditions were so horrific just in the cars themselves. When they get off the car, the pattern's always the same. Men and women are divided, and in Treblinka they're sent on different paths, both ending in the same place, though, at the gas chamber. Treblinka tried to hide the fact by what was happening by giving people signs of hope when they got off the cattle cars. So they made a mock train station where it looked as like you're coming off, you're getting to the train station. People going this way, you're going to head towards Krakow, and this way is heading towards St. Petersburg, or whatever. So you get off, and you're told, listen, you're going to go to the showers, we're going to get you cleaned up. This is a kind of like a transport stop, you're not going to stay, etc. So people are killed, really, in terms of hope, the hope that they're going to be okay. And at Treblinka, like I said, no one survives Treblinka except a few work Jews. Everyone else was immediately gassed. In places like Auschwitz, there's a lineup. So men and women and children are divided. So women are with their children, and men are in a separate line. There's basically a person in the front who says left or right, and depending on what's going on in the camp, right usually meant death, left meant you're going to a labor brigade, where you'd then be processed, where they'd record your name, where they would tattoo you, where they'd shave your head and give you camp clothing, and you begin your life in a concentration camp, basically. They wanted this to be a quick process, and so women and children are never separated. Mothers are never separated from their children. They're immediately sent to the gas chamber. And movies such as Life is Beautiful I find very disturbing. If you've seen this one, although it was a film that tried to maybe capture the humanity of those people, in that movie there's a child that survives, but the sad part is there is no child that survives. The babies die immediately. When you arrive with a mother, they don't want to separate them. You'll cause a fuss if you try to remove a child from a mother. So they just all were sent. Now, like I said, there's the percentage of women and children who die is higher than men for that reason as well. Women who were young and healthy, who might have been good workers, were immediately killed, were sacrificed because they don't have the fuss of this confrontation.